I'm Susan David with Bible by Phone. Today's message is, do something, perform, then I'll believe and follow you. Part 1. There's always been skeptics, those who choose not to believe that which they cannot see and with their own eyes. The word faith is so foreign to these people that when they hear it, they blink their eyes and they look startled, like a toad sitting out in a rainstorm. Some people cannot fathom believing in something their eyes cannot actually see, yet they'll always confess they know they're breathing the substance called air, and they've never seen air because it's invisible. And that fact is accepted just because they're told it exists and they're still alive. Well, they do accept that fact. Okay, Darwin never said that evolution was a confirmed fact that was backed up by scientific evidence. He said evolution was only a theory. Yet creationism, or more modern intelligent design, is the most popular way to reconcile with faith. However, an intelligent design or designer is not even considered a possibility, but that notion has been deleted from our textbooks as false. How can religious leaders who claim to believe in God consider evolution a fact? How can they disregard, disrespect, and eliminate the creator of heaven and earth? Didn't God take credit in Genesis for creating the heavens, the earth, and all living things, including humans? It says in Revelation 22:19, if anyone subtracts any part of these prophecies, God shall take away his share in the tree of life and in the holy city just described. Yet, some pastors are siding with the worldview, and they're standing on the theory only of evolution as if it were an established fact. Oh, dear God. People who choose not to believe in God actually choose to believe in the oddest things that to me are simple, common sense, false concepts. One lady, interviewed by the media on television, she made a blanket statement, which I've heard before. She said, I don't know why you people, speaking of Christians, can't just leave us alone and let us have sex with whomever we choose without your constant guilt trips. Oh, I'm paraphrasing. You see, this lady and so many others actually believe that humans are graded equally with animals in our sexual nature. Just yank off your clothes wherever and whenever and grab whatever's available at the time. Don't worry about privacy, disease, reputation, gender, family, or morals. Oh, and don't worry about pregnancy. There's always abortion. You see, they believe the only important issue is physical gratification at any cost. Oh, please. Where were you raised? In a barn? People, more and more, they're left alone to believe anything that they can conjure up in their minds, but they refuse to believe the history books filled with accounts overflowing from those who came before us and testified, wrote, spoke, and verified that the accounts of miracles they saw were true. College students, well, they're taught by unbelieving professors that the Bible is fantasy and the accounts therein are untrue. They express it that there's, if there is a God, well, then he needs to prove himself. He needs to show us his great miracles. He needs to speak to us personally and demonstrate he cares. Sounds like certain ones penned in the Bible who also thought themselves above the fold. See, many people through pride do not see themselves seeking after God in order to find him. Oh no, but they believe if God wants their attention and their allegiance, he needs to seek after them. I mean, after all, if there is a God of miracles, then he should repeat his feats on demand for their personal eyes. Otherwise, they believe God is ignoring them, and that is just cause to throw out all the testimonies, accounts, and the proof by volumes that came before them. Boy, that's putting a whole lot of emphasis on, notice how special I am. I'll give you all my full endorsement, God, as soon as you perform for me. You know, this always reminds me of when I was a child. My dad took us to the circus. One thing I remember happened over and over was that people could get animals to perform tricks. And after they performed, then the audience would applaud, showing their approval. Notice I said applause did not come until after the animal performed their trick. I've got news for the gainsayers or the unbelievers. God is just the opposite. You see, he says in his word, believe in me and my miracles first, and then you will see them, not the other way around. That puts God in control, not man. Do you know why he places this very important detail backwards? Well, for unbelievers. Answer. Because he's God. He can. More so because, well, exercising faith first, believing prior to a healing or a miracle is extremely important to God. So he's devised it so that when faith is released from us, all right, first, then, you know, he will do his thing, which is faith, okay? Activated faith triggers the miracle or the answer. Activated faith triggers it. Okay, that keeps the pride down to a minimum. And then it always reminds the believer who's in charge. You know, man has always tried to get God to perform his way, but I've noticed over the years, God doesn't do anything contrary to his written word. His spoken word. Do I need to repeat that? From the beginning of time, man has tried everything to get God to perform or obey his commands. Man's prayed, he's begged, he's cried, he's cajoled, he swore, he cursed, he threatened, and he practiced getting even. You see, when nothing moved the hand of God, those humans thought to themselves, you know, I have only one ace left. If I can't get God to do it my way, I'll get even with him by turning away from him, and not only will I turn away, but I'll really show him how powerful I am. I'll spend the rest of my days talking to everyone around me who's around me. Again, I'll talk against God. I'll turn as many people against him as I possibly can. Then we'll see who's in control. Because he's really angered me. And if he really is true after all, once I die, the only thing he can do to me is put me in this place he calls hell. I have news. I'll just party for eternity there. I'll show him. You know, this reminds me of Bill Maher, or Mayer, whatever his name, and some of his pathetic statements. Yeah, God perform, okay? Perform on demand. You know, I get a chill when I hear people speak like that. They don't have a clue, not even a small one, to the future of that type of attitude and all the pain involved. Of course, you mentioned that they'll just tell you how mean God is, and they'll remind you of all the places in the Bible where they disapprove of some action or maybe some instruction of God, which brings me to the question of what happened to these people that could have caused such a hard heart towards a loving God. What happened? Well, another pertinent question is, if atheists don't believe there's a God, why are they wasting so much of their time and energy coming against someone or something which they say doesn't exist? Is it because they care so much about Christians? Oh, somehow I'm missing that loving message through their attitude. If they truly cared, why? Wouldn't they, wouldn't they just let Christians alone in their belief of, someday passing through this short life of numerous tribulations to a glorious eternity? Yeah, an eternal one filled with peace, joy, rest. Could it be they see Christians as thinking themselves superior to them? Well, I can see how some zealous Christians might be portrayed as antagonistic and, well, even prideful. Years ago, I wanted to try and understand the feelings and perhaps the views of an unbeliever. So, in my mind, I put myself in their position. I looked again at the Christians around me and I began to listen. I listened to conversations where Christians were witnessing. And at times, it was difficult to hear the love. As I sat in the unbeliever's seat, see, still in my mind, I interpreted what I felt was a condescending, better than thou attitude. Not all, just a few Christians. Now, you want to know what else I packed up in my mind? Well, I picked up, as I thought about believers and unbelievers. Well, let me tell you about it in the next message. Go to part 2 of Do Something, Perform. Then I'll believe and follow you. It gets better. See you there.